Welcome back to We Need to Talk. Of course, this is the show that looks at football on the internet over the past 7 days. What a 7 days it has been, by the way. And it's been the 7 days that's seen Mason Mount make this one little girl's life. England fans letting fireworks off out of a backpack on Wembley Way. And Sweet Caroline getting its usual outing after an England win. Anyway, today we need to talk about Euro 2020. We're talking about Euro 2020 today because we're rapidly approaching the end of the tournament. So we've got to squeeze in as much Euro 2020 content as humanly possible because the final is on Sunday between England and Italy. But before we get into the Euro 2020 rankings, I want to hear from you guys at home. Which team has been your favourite to watch and which has been your least favourite to watch? Reply in the comments below and I'll be sort of chatting to you guys the first hour or two whilst this video is live, and hit the like button as well because it really does help us out. Anyway, today it is going to be another Euro 2020 tier list. Mainly because I've got no other good ideas. And we've now seen all of the teams pretty much play out the entirety of their tournament other than England and Italy. So we're going to be ranking every team we've seen at Euro 2020 based on how they performed compared to how we thought they would. You know, it's going to be a bit contextualised, this. I'm not just going to have France in tier 1, for instance. Alright, the 5 categories we're looking at. We've got awful, pretty self-explanatory, poor, average, good, and elite. Not messing about, let's just crack on. Okay, I'm going to do it in group order today. So the first team we're going to start with is the team that topped Group A, and that is Italy, of course. Ow, I just smacked my knee on the fucking table. Of course, they took 9 points from a possible 9, didn't they? A very, very easy group stage for them. I think they scored 7, didn't concede a goal. Pretty comfortably, I think the best team to watch so far at the Euros. In my opinion, as a neutral anyway, Italy. I think they've been the most entertaining going forward. Them and England look the most solid at the back. But there's just something about this Italian side that's so passionate. It just seems to have got every neutral behind it. That's probably also helped with the fact they're playing England in the final. But they have to be in the elite tier. They've been probably the best team so far this tournament. All right, next up, we've got Wales. Now, this is an interesting one because they finished second in Group A, and they had a couple of pretty impressive performances. I'm thinking mainly against Turkey. I think it was in Azerbaijan, wasn't it? It was a massive Turkish fan base, and Wales went there, won 2-0. That was a huge, huge performance. Left the group with 4 points. Okay, they did get battered by Denmark in the round of 16, but Denmark are a really good team, as England found out on Thursday, or on Wednesday, I should say, sorry. So would I say Wales were good this tournament? I think they had good moments. I really think they had good moments, like that Turkey one. But they also had, you know, some fairly poor moments. The 1-1 draw with Switzerland wasn't great. Obviously lost against Italy, and they did get hammered by Denmark. If they'd have just lost maybe 1-0 to Denmark, think about them, have them in that good tier. I'm going to drop them down to average just based on that. And I wasn't that amazed by the football they played. It was just kind of, you know, smack it at Kiefer Moore at times, wasn't it? And hope there's a bit of brilliance from Ramsey and Bale. So I'll put it in average. Next up then, we've got Switzerland, who are, of course, also in this group. And they also scraped through, didn't they? I would probably be putting them around about where Wales were. They also qualified with 4 points, beating Turkey 2. But then they did have an exceptional knockout run. To beat France, yes, it was on penalties, and score 3 goals in that game, probably immediately jumps them up to good, in my opinion. And they only lost to Spain on penalties, didn't they? That was a 1-1 draw. They had a better result against Turkey. Obviously, they lost to Italy as well, but there's no shame in that. So I'm going to put the Swiss in good. As for Turkey, woof. They were absolutely pathetic. They are going straight in my awful category. The worst team of the tournament, in my opinion, given we hyped them and everybody hyped them before the tournament. More fool us, to be honest with you, because we didn't... I just don't think we'd watched enough of Turkey to give those opinions. I think we all got drawn into this narrative and we shouldn't have. They were absolutely pathetic. 3-0 against Italy, 3-1 against Switzerland, 2-0 against Wales. They looked unfit. They looked like they never played together, that Turkish side. So yeah, categorically awful. Moving into Group B then, we're going to start with Belgium. Belgium's a difficult one, in my opinion. I'm struggling a little bit with them. Now, obviously, they walked Group B, 9 points from 9. Again, 7 goals scored like the Italians. I think they did concede the 1, though. They then kind of muddled their way through against Portugal, that 1-0 win. But nevertheless, it was against Portugal and then crashed out against Italy. So, you know what? I don't think they were good. Like, I don't think they overachieved. I don't think they overperformed. I thought they were really reliant on Kevin De Bruyne and Romelu Lukaku throughout the course of the tournament. I thought the defence looked suspect near the entire tournament. I'm going to have to put them in average, I think. Just a bit meh. Moving on to Denmark then, and this is probably my favourite story of the tournament in terms of narrative. Of course, they had that horrendous Christian Eriksen incident. The game should have been postponed. Called off against Finland. It wasn't. It went ahead. They lost. They missed a penalty. Then they probably should have beaten Belgium, in my opinion. They're probably the better team in that game. Lost and went through, beating Russia 4-0 in that final group game on just 3 points. And then they started to find form, walloping the Welsh, beating the Czech Republic. Got to a semi-final. Under those circumstances, for me, this was an elite tournament from Denmark. I loved watching them play football. The narrative surrounding them was brilliant. Maybe a little bit unfortunate to lose to England. Was or was it not a penalty? There's a lot of debate out there. It probably wasn't, but England were the better team. So I'm going to put Denmark in elite. I think this was just such a fun tournament for Denmark, and they overcame so much that they have to be in there. All right, we're talking about Finland next then. Obviously, they got their 3 points beating Denmark in that kind of dodgy game. Then they lost to the Russians. They lost to the Belgians. 3 points, though. I won't put them in awful. I'll just put them in poor. They were just, yeah, poor, weren't they? Russia, on the other hand, are going to go in awful. I thought they were diabolical in this tournament, Russia, given they had 2 games in St. Petersburg as well. Really, really poor. I think they conceded 7. They only scored 2, didn't they? They were so disappointing. And I know that the Russians, the fan base, was absolutely raging with the team's performance, so I'm putting them in awful. Okay, we're into Group C now, starting with the Dutch. Of course, 9 points from 9 to top Group C. No surprise, given this was one of the easier groups, I felt like. And they were okay in the groups. De Boer showed flashes of managerial talent, but then, you know, as soon as they came up against the Czech Republic, they just collapsed, really, didn't they? I kind of want to put them in poor. Do I put them in poor? Do you know what? I was expecting the Netherlands to beat the Czechs in the round of 16. I'm putting them in the poor category. Didn't show enough across the course of the tournament. I thought Gini Wijnaldum did himself no harm at all. He was one of the better players, but overall, as a unit, the Dutch were just crap. Austria are up next then, and I think I'll put them ahead of the Netherlands. More was expected of the Netherlands than crashing out in those circumstances against the Czech Republic at the round of 16. That side of the draw, the England and the Dutch side, was so much more favourable. They had a real shot at getting deep in this tournament, and they didn't. Whereas Austria, I think 2 wins in the group. Losing to Italy is not an absolute disgrace, is it? I think this has been an average tournament for them. As for Ukraine, I'm kind of tempted to put them in good. I'm kind of hovering between good and average. If there was a category in there, I think I would put them in there, because for Ukraine to make the quarterfinals, I think is no mean feat. And they crashed out against England, who have been exceptional throughout the whole of the tournament. To beat Sweden 2-1, yes, they did have the red card. The Swedes in that game is no mean feat. I think Ukraine, a lot of people had them as sort of dark horses at the start of the tournament. I think that was a good tournament for Ukraine. I'm going to put them in the good category. Or am I? I've just thought about the groups a little bit more. They were the worst third place team by distance, weren't they? They were very lucky to get through there. Oh, I can't decide. Good or average? Good or average? Let's just be kind and put them in good, but they could easily be an average. North Macedonia are up next then, and I'm sure a lot of people expected me to put them in awful. I don't think North Macedonia were awful throughout the course of this tournament. Yes, they lost 3-0, 3-1, 2-0 was it? They obviously finished bottom of this group fairly comfortably. However, nobody expected anything of them, did they? And their population is just 2 million. I think it's like 2 Birminghams. I'm going to put them in poor. But I don't think they were awful contextually compared to the likes of Turkey and Russia, who had much higher hopes than North Macedonia. England are up next. Then we're talking Group D. And even if I take my bias aside, England surely have to be one of the elite sides. They've made the final. They've conceded 1 goal across the course of the tournament. They've won every single game on expected goals. Underlying numbers look great. Very defensively solid. Not the most exciting in attack, but you don't have to be at international level. For me, they've been elite. The group was pretty easy, I'm not going to lie. The Scotland sort of stumble might have just woken a few of us up. And then as soon as we got to the knockout stages, we've started to find our form. That superb win against Germany, really a catalyst for the tournament for us. Then hammering of Ukraine. We should have beaten Denmark much more comfortably than 2-1. I mean, Kasper Schmeichel made some phenomenal saves, and Denmark really didn't offer too much going forward. So England are absolutely in the elite category here. Croatia, this is a bit of a meh, which immediately points me towards the average category. I'm going to put them in there for now, I think. Obviously finishing second in the group on 4 points. They lost to England, drew with the Czech Republic. Did have that good win against Scotland at Hampden Park. And then one of the games of the tournament, to be honest with you, against Spain in the round of 16. That 5-3 stunner in extra time. So yeah, I'll put them in average. Given that they were World Cup finalists just 3 years ago, maybe people would have been expecting more, but it was fine from them. Czech Republic are up next then, of course. They finished third on 4 points in England's group, but they kind of grew into the tournament as well. That result against Netherlands was pretty exceptional. Yes, they did lose to Denmark, but we've already discussed the Danes as being a very, very good side. Patrick Schick is still the joint top goal scorer. He still scored the best goal at this tournament. They won at Hampden Park. That was a huge result as well. And if I had Ukraine in the good category, surely I've got to have the Czech Republic there as well. Okay, we've got Scotland up next. And how disappointing were they? How disappointing was Scotland at this tournament? Like, coming into it, I actually expected them to get out of the group. I thought they would perform pretty well. I think they've got some really solid players. They had 2 games at Hampden Park. The other match was, of course, at Wembley, so they didn't have to travel huge distances. I thought this suits them down to the ground. And they lost at home against the Czech Republic in really feeble manners. They lost at home against Croatia, again, pretty tragically. And yes, they had the high of drawing 0-0, winning 0-0 against England, as some Scots will tell you. But I just thought they were crap throughout the whole tournament. I'm putting Scotland in the awful category. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Scottish people in the comments right now doing their heads, saying, oh, we did ourselves proud. You finished bottom of the group. You had 2 home games. Get out. Okay, Sweden are up next then, and they actually topped their group ahead of Spain, so that is not an easy feat. Of course, they beat Poland and Slovakia in this one. However, they did go out in really limp fashion, I thought, against Ukraine. That was such a winnable game, and their side of the draw, again, England's side of the draw was so favourable, and Sweden were on it. I'm sure they fancied themselves getting to a quarter-final. They didn't, but topping a group with Spain in it is not an easy feat. So I'm going to put them in average, because I don't think it was a terrible group stage. It was a poor knockout round, but average. Up next, we've got Spain then. They just started so badly, didn't they, in this tournament? They only got out of the group with 5 points, let's not forget. They drew their first 2 games. Then they had that stonking 5-0 win over Slovakia. Then they went on to score a further 5 goals in that 5-3 stunner against Croatia, one of the games of the tournament. They beat Switzerland, who were no mugs either. Of course, they'd knocked out the French earlier in the tournament. So I think entertainment factor, Spain are right up there. Losing to Italy on pens isn't a disgrace. They could have been in a final. And people had written Spain off before this tournament. They really had. Go back and look at some of those Football Daily predictions, which I will do in about 5 days' time, by the way, and there's quite a few people on Football Daily saying they'd be the flops of the tournament, and Spain very nearly one penalty away from making a final, so they have to be in category 2, in my opinion. If you're one penalty away from making a final, you've had a good tournament. Slovakia are up next then, and look, it wasn't an awful tournament for them. I think people expect them to finish stone bottom of this group, maybe on 0 or 1 points. They finished in 3rd place on 3 points, of course. That victory against Poland, I think I'm gonna put them in poor. They weren't good, they weren't average, they were poor, but they weren't awful, were they? Contextually, I don't think anybody expected them to be anything other than getting 3 points at maximum out of that group. So I'm putting them in poor. Poland are up next then, and I've been pretty disappointed by them throughout the whole tournament, to be honest with you. Robert Lewandowski still got 3 goals, but the only point came in that 1-1 draw with Spain, which is weird when you think about it. To lose to Sweden, to lose to Slovakia, it's been an awful tournament if you're a Poland fan. Just pretty unacceptable. They're going in the bottom category. Moving on to the group of death then, where we definitely thought the winner was going to come from this tournament, to be honest with you, in the form of France. But France were so disappointing. They were so... Yes, they topped the group. I understand that. But they topped the group on 5 points. Let's not forget that. Their only win was against Germany, and that was a poor Germany side. They scraped it 1-0. The draw against Hungary was awful. And the draw against Portugal wasn't much better, to be honest with you, let alone crashing out against an okay Switzerland team where you shipped 3 goals. Mbappe missed that crucial penalty. I thought Paul Pogba, if they'd have gone deep in this competition, was a candidate for player of the tournament. I thought he was brilliant. But let's have it right. France had an awful tournament. By their standards, by World Cup winners, by the quality of this squad, they were awful. 5 points crashed out of the round of 16 to an average Switzerland side. They're going in my awful category. I don't care what you say. As for Germany, who are up next, they did have a really impressive victory, didn't they, against Portugal. That was their game of the tournament. People were saying they're going to burst into life. And then they just slumped back to a really awful result against Hungary, quite frankly. They were lucky to get anything out of that game. They scored late. They crashed out against England in really poor fashion. Didn't really offer too much. Germany were poor across the course of this tournament. They really were. Moving on to Portugal then, obviously they started the tournament in pretty good fashion. Cristiano Ronaldo scoring, beating Hungary 3-0. He's still top goal scorer. But then they lost quite badly against Germany, didn't they? Germany were far and away the better team. Drew against the French. Losing to Belgium in the round of 16 isn't totally shameful, but again, they were poor. The Portuguese were poor. Moving on to Hungary then, and given they're in absolutely the group of death, everybody thought they'd be the whipping boys of the tournament, comfortably far under the worst team in the tournament. They proved so many people wrong. They absolutely did. To draw with France is not easy, and to be 6 minutes away from qualifying with 4 points out of this group in second spot just for Germany to peg you back is nothing to be ashamed of. Hungary had a good tournament. Hungary are going in good. They weren't a good team, but they had a good tournament. Let's be real. Even though they went out, given what was expected of them, Hungary had a good tournament. I know people are going to hammer me for this tier list, but I'm sorry, they deserve to be in the second tier. Alright, so that was my tier list of Euro 2020 team performance based on a lot of contextual factors. Okay, if you just took this in isolation, you'd be saying that is a howler. But I think I've made some reasonable arguments here. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Like I said at the start, let me know your favourite team to watch, your least favourite team to watch in the comments below. Hit that like button. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.